Glyphica Typing Survival is one of those games that I came across in a Steam Next Fest demo earlier this year and absolutely loved. And I'm delighted to say that that promise carries through to the early access release that comes out today. Glyphica Typing Survival merges together a typing challenge with a Survivor-style gameplay loop, in that you play as a weapon in the centre of the screen that fires out weapons to kill the enemy drones coming from the outside in, and each of those enemies have a word associated with them. Type out the word with no mistakes and out goes the firing line. You'll start off with a single weapon straight out front, but as you gain XP through killing enemies, you can then unlock another 4 additional weapons on top of your main one, and they can all be upgraded, modified, and going through various different skill trees, so that you can then get the best fit for whatever it is that you're trying to do in your certain run. And there's lots of different weapons to choose from. There's lots of base weapons to choose from, although not all of them are in the early access release. And the idea is that over the course of 3 waves of enemies, you'll get a boss at the end of each wave, and you'll need to conquer the 3 bosses and survive and not die to therefore clear that level of difficulty associated with the main weapon. That unlocks the next one, which might have double enemy health or half your health, or things are coming at a certain more speed. It's then cumulative because it just keeps getting harder and harder and harder the further you go. I have to say, my fat fingers can't quite cope with some of the later difficulties, but I'm having a lot of fun finding out how it all works and just enjoying the chaos that is Glyphica Typing Survival. The real key to this game is that it is really a true merger of typing simulator and survival elements, or survivors elements, because you can't rely on one element of this game alone. And what I mean by that is that quite a lot of the weapons, as you start to upgrade them, will trigger if, say, a word starts with Y or Z, or if a word contains A, E, I, O, U, for example. It might then spawn out some little drone arrows that will go and then attack some of the enemies, or it might start out a little spiral knife that starts to chop enemies as they go through them. And so you are having to think about what type of upgrades you get, and trying to almost spread the load across the alphabet so that you can have more chances of spawning out some of those secondary weapons along as you go. Not only is there just pure damage, there's also things like increasing the range of the attack, the firing rate of the attack, and then adding on status ailments to them too. So you can add on poison tipped things, you can freeze enemies and slow them down, but then increase the freeze to start fracturing them by cracking the enemies. You can add on fire and flame so that they burn over time. And all of this can be very helpful. Electrical damage is in there too, and you can start to really home in on certain types of elemental damage in the background. Sometimes that can be quite difficult to see it coming out on the screen, and that's where whenever you get an upgrade or some loot that can help you, seeing the damage per second meter on the left hand side lets you understand which of your attacks are going particularly well and whether you want to lean in on that or start boosting up some of the other ones alongside. Ultimately, there's lots of different ways to go about winning in Glyphica Typing Survival, but you cannot rely on typing skill alone. You must use all of the other mechanics around in the background. Similarly, you can't just rely on, I'll just go on for one attack and one trick pony it to try and get your way through, because whenever a boss battle arrives, you start to have to think about multitasking, and this is really where my left brain, right brain drama started to unfold in Glyphica Typing Survival, but it's what makes the game so addictive. With the bosses that arrive, they come at the top of the screen and will start to modify the words in some way. So one starts to scramble the letters as it flies around the screen within its radius, which really hurts because you start to have to type out words that don't exist, and it's such a brain rewiring to try and get around that. It's funny how you get set into patterns of typing certain words over and over and over again. But the boss that really done my head in was the one that you have to type out a massive long paragraph of old text, and you're having to do that whilst reprioritising when enemies are starting to become overwhelming on the main screen, then flicking back to the boss, then flicking back to the enemies, and you're constantly having to work out how you can quickly speed up and try and get a few words in on that main boss paragraph, whilst also keeping the main things at bay. Because if you spend too long on one or another, if you spend too long on a boss, then it gets too overwhelming on the enemy screen and you'll die that way. Spend too long on the enemies, the boss doesn't actually get hurt. And Glyphica typing survival, like all survival games, just piles on more and more enemies over time. So you have to go quickly. Otherwise it just becomes totally overwhelming and you just get like bombarded by all of these enemy drones. So you're having to take your chances quite often with these bosses, and it gets very tricky to balance that out in real time. But that's where the fun comes in, and that's where the replayability hits as well. And then if you clear the base stage, then you'll go up the difficulty and try again. I really love this game. It's worthwhile calling out that whilst all of your gameplay will be seen on the white background, there is a dark mode too. I just forgot to record it, apologies. And I just had great fun getting to grips with all of the weird and wonderful things that this game throws at you. It's a total joy to play, no bugs or issues that I came across, which is unheard of for an early access release. And there's lots of things in the menu that imply there's lots more coming down the line that will beef out Glyphica over time as well, although what's here is still great for an early access release. I really enjoyed myself. Yes, my fingers hurt, but no, I have no regrets on it whatsoever. Weaponize your words per minute. I strongly recommend it. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.